I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself before we start about the main topic of our conversation, which is challah. I came to this country about 15 years ago from Riga, Latvia, where there was not much of a Jewish life or Jewish education for me. And all I knew, I was a Jew, but I didn't know what it meant. And I came to this country, and thank God I was able to learn more while I was on my year abroad in Israel. And I came to appreciate my Jewish traditions and my Jewish values. And when I was getting married and I saw these beautiful Jewish homes filled with beautiful challahs, I was thinking, how can I ever do something like this? Because it looked like such a complicated job. And once I got married, I started making my own challah, and I realized that it's actually very, very doable, and it's a very enjoyable process. And now, every single week, I love making challah. And actually, at this point, all my children, including even my 5-year-old, know how to make challah from beginning till end. And here I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is challah and a little bit how to make it, so that if you decide to do it, you'll see that it's something that you can definitely do, and you can experience it yourself. And the aroma and the beautiful smell and feeling of the challah can also be in your home and in your family. So let's talk about what is challah first. Many people, when they think of challah, imagine right away these two gorgeous, beautiful, usually it's two beautiful breads which are braided. Usually it's a 3 braided. In this case, these are 6 braided. Bread that usually accompanies a house on Shabbos, and that's what happens every Shabbos and every holiday. We make a beautiful kiddush, we make a blessing on the wine, and then we make a blessing on the challah. But if you actually look in the Torah and look and see what is the source of challah, you will see it says that when you come to the land, your land, which is the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, you should set aside, and you shall make yourself bread of the land. You should take bread of the land. You should set aside a small portion and give it to your priests. Give it to the Kohanim. This is what it says about the challah. So the actual mitzvah of the challah is not the bread itself, but actually separating a piece once you make the dough, is separating a piece, putting it aside, saying a blessing on it, and then giving it to the Kohen during the times of the temple, and now we just burn it. So let's talk about that first. What is this idea? So if you think about it, it takes actually a lot of energy and effort to make challah, right? We need all this, gather all the ingredients, especially in the older times, it wasn't so simple. You need the flour, the water, the oil, the eggs, the sugar, and the salt, right? We put it all together, and we work at it, and we make this beautiful dough. And then we set it aside, it rises, and then what do I do first? What's the first thing I do? I should probably enjoy it, make the beautiful challahs and eat it. No, my first job is to take a piece and set it aside. And what am I saying with this idea is that, it says that challah really represents all of the food. Because, a lot of people can't even imagine, nowadays there's a lot of, gluten-free people, and, they don't eat bread. But in the olden times, if you think about it, you can't imagine a meal without a piece of bread. Bread is kind of the staff of life, right? And even if there's an expression in English, dough. Dough means money, dough means substance. Have you gotten any dough? So this idea that challah really represents our substance, our idea of how we get our material needs met. And so before we get to enjoy it, before we get to make it, and before we get to eat it, we actually put a piece aside and say, really, ultimately, everything that I've got, it's from God. And everything that I've got is really, not mine, but it's because God was able to give me the ability and the talent to make it. So that's the first idea, and that's really the mitzvah of challah. Now, what is this idea of challah? Number one, we know that the idea came from when the Jewish people were traveling in the desert for those 40 years. We know that they weren't just eating regular stuff. They were eating this amazing thing called man, right? We know that it came every single morning. It came, and the Jews were able to gather. And actually, the man, it says that there was like a white grainy material, that it was like a dew. It would come, people would gather, and people would gather every single day. And then what happens is on Friday, which is right before Shabbos, there would be extra man that fell on the ground. everywhere, in the desert. And God told Moshe to tell the Jewish people to please gather a double portion, because on Shabbos you're not allowed to really gather, more. You can't really gather food. You should be able to enjoy, and rest, just like God rested. Even it says in the Torah that there was a person who tried to collect it, and then it just didn't work out. It became all wormy. You can't really collect on Shabbos. So really, one of the things that we do, one of the reasons why we have two challahs every Shabbos, every Friday night, and every Shabbos lunch, which is the two basic big meals that we have on Shabbos, is to commemorate this idea that the Jewish people were able to get a double portion before Shabbos, and on Shabbos they rested. Now, this idea of man also correlates very closely to the idea of challah. And what I said in the beginning is that in some ways it's food, and in some ways you eat it and it nourishes you, right? Just like bread is. But how is that different from any other food? So we know that man had this miracle properties, right? The man, it says that during the 40 years, the Jewish people actually didn't use the bathroom. There was no excretion. It completely got absorbed in the body. And it was just the perfect food for the body, and it was exactly what the person needed. Not more and not less. And it was in a way a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. It was something that came from above, right? It was a definite thing where, you could look up and say, okay, it's definitely not something I've done. At the same time, it nourished you completely. Challah, we gather the ingredients from the things that God gave us, the natural resources, and then we make it. And in a similar way, it also nourishes us. So it's a similar idea. Another idea about challah is that, it says that actually Adam is considered the dough of the world. God formed him just like we form challah. And in a way, it reminds us also of how we are all formed by God, and that's another idea that when we eat the challah, that's another idea that we have to remember, again, that God constantly forms us and creates us and recreates and gives us life newly, every minute. With every breath, he gives us a new life. Now, the idea of challah and how to make challah is actually not that complicated, and I really hope you will get to enjoy this process with me. It has, as I mentioned before, this 5 basic ingredients, and I want to go over them and discuss how really ultimately these ingredients are there also when you are making the challah. It's also to help you meditate and see the blessings in your life. One more thing I wanted to mention is that anybody really can make challah, and anybody can take this piece, and it used to be given to the Kohen, now it's just burnt in the oven. But ultimately, it's a mitzvah that really belongs to women, because women are usually in charge of the household and of the cooking, at least most of the time. And there are 3 main mitzvahs that are really associated with women. Again, a man can do them as well, but it's really a part of a woman's makeup. And one of them is challah. Another 2 are the lighting of the candles on Shabbos, before Shabbos. And the 3rd one is going to the mikveh at the right time to have a relationship with their husbands in purity. But the challah is really also associated, not just the challah itself, it also has to do with the whole atmosphere of the home, and also, of course, the purity of the home. Because the idea of challah is the fact that you're separating this piece, and the fact that you're making this beautiful thing in your house, and it smells great and it's beautiful. It's also this idea that the woman is in charge of what's going to be happening in the house. What kind of atmosphere? Is it going to smell good? Is it going to feel good? Is it going to be a good household and a warm atmosphere to come home to? So let me go a little bit over the ingredients that we use to make challah. So the first one is flour, right? We take flour, it's white, and you have to use a lot of it. And the flour is really the main ingredient of the challah, and it has to do, again, with the substance. It's what we have. Is, the idea of how does God send us, this parnasa? How do you say it in Yiddish or in Hebrew, parnasa? It's how, we literally, when we pour the flour, we thank God for all the beautiful material blessings that we have in the house, from the physical things, from the fact that we're able to work, from the fact that we're able to support our family and ourselves. This is the substance. This is the flour. The second one is we pour water, right? We take flour and we take water. And water is actually one of these ingredients. Water is always associated with Torah. It says that, there's a beautiful parable about Rabbi Akiva is a big tzaddik and a big rabbi. And he lived in the times when the Jewish people were persecuted, in the times of the Second Temple. And he used to teach Torah to thousands of Jews. He would gather crowds of Jews and he would teach Torah to them, even though it was prohibited by the Romans. And one person once remarked and said, Akiva, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. They're just going to kill you and they're going to throw you into jail. Like, why are you doing it in their faces? And he gave them a parable. He said that, a fox once saw a fish in the lake, and the fishermen were going with the nets to catch the fish. And the fox said, "Fish, come out of the lake. Let's go. I'll save you here on the land. Then this way you won't be caught by the net." And the fish said, "Are you crazy, fox? Are you Mishugana? Like here we have a chance to escape. At least we're in the water. If we come out to the land, we'll completely dry out, and it will be the end of us." And this is a beautiful parable with water, is that a Jew always has to be connected to his or her roots, to the Torah, to the mitzvahs, to the traditions. And if we don't connect, if we disconnect, it's like fish going out into the land, and into the dry land. And even if it's hard, even during the times when it's hard to be a Jew, it's still important. It was still important to be connected. And so water is the ingredient that talks about what kind of Jewish traditions do we have for ourselves and for our family members? Do we bring Jewish books in the house? Do we talk about Jewish values? Do we discuss this kind of things with our families? And that's a very important, ingredient. Without water, you can't make challah. Third one is oil. Oil is an interesting ingredient, right? It stays on top. Oil is actually associated with anointing. This is how kings and queens used to be anointed. They would have oil poured over their heads, and it represents making our family feel like kings and queens, which we are. It says the Jewish people we're the Kohanim of the whole world. We are the ones who are supposed to show the light, right, to others, and we're supposed to ourselves also feel like we are kings and queens in the way we behave, in the way we talk. And that's another job of a woman in the house, is to make them feel this way. Third ingredient is eggs, which I think I forgot to mention the first time. And eggs is about rebirth, right? We use eggs during Pesach. It's about new life. And this idea is that we're always able to change and move on. We're not stuck where we are. And that's another idea that a woman can help. Next is sugar. Sugar we all love, right? Unless you're a diabetic, well, then you can do a sugar substitute. We can easily do that. By the way, you can make challah without eggs. I have many recipes, and it's very easy to make one without. Now, sugar is obviously about complimenting and giving praises to our family members and making sure they all feel loved and and liked. And that's very, very important. And family has to be a good, happy place to be. Salt, we don't use so much. Usually it's always the smallest ingredient. It's usually like a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons. And salt is obviously there to enhance the taste, right? We know if we stick too much salt, it's going to be disgusting. I once made soup and I poured too much salt by mistake. There was nothing else I could do. No matter how much I added things and added whatever, it was just not good. And so salt, we got to use sparingly, and that's something that we use, but we always think, we do give maybe a small critique and small things that we might, want to change in our family members and ourselves, but we do it sparingly, only to enhance and only to make somebody feel better and to improve, and not, God forbid, to break them. And of course, the most important ingredients maybe is yeast, because without yeast you can't have challah. It has to rise. And this idea is that, it's our self-esteem and confidence. We got to feel good as Jews ourselves. We got to make our family feels good feel good as Jews. And that's another idea of challah. It rises. It has to give us Jewish pride. We all have to be educated and proud Jews. And that's one of the things that in order to really make this happen, we make challah. We make beautiful Shabbos dinners. We invite guests if we can, even during Corona. Maybe we could do it, on Zoom, But we have to make ourselves feel good as Jews, and we have to make people around us feel proud and good as Jews. And I want to invite all of you to see how easy it is to make challah with me, how easy it is to make a beautiful Jewish home. Maybe it's not so easy, but it's something, at least it's a start, by making this beautiful challahs. Dear friends, we find ourselves in an amazing time, in a time of a beautiful, joyous holiday of Hanukkah. Hanukkah was always a holiday that the Jews, from all times until from the beginning of celebration, always loved this holiday. It's a holiday that's associated with joy, happiness, victory of the small Jewish nation over a big Greek nation, and of course lights. And it's my personal favorite holiday because during Hanukkah I was also born. And by the way, my non-Jewish name is Sveta, and my parents had no idea that I was born during Hanukkah, and yet they named me this way, and I was very privileged to later to take upon myself a different name, Sarah. But meanwhile, I love this holiday. I love the holiday of light, and I want to say that this is the time when we put our menorahs in the windows or by the door, according to your customs. And this is the time when we literally, our Jewish pride and our Jewish identity shines through. So I want to wish every single person here who's watching to remember that you're a Jew, be a proud Jew, and try to do as many Jewish things as you can. Go out, light candles, have as many Jewish things as you can, and definitely try to make this amazing challah, and you'll see that you will love it, and all your families will love it. Happy Hanukkah, a Freiliche Hanukkah to all of you. Thank you for your attention, and I hope